is the secret of a good night's sleep. And I'm hoping that you find this information very helpful. Going to have three objectives. The first is going to be this a little bit of background on sleep. When I dove in and started doing the research, I was just saying to Julie when we were getting ready that they had requested this topic, and I think it's a great one. I was really interested in being a part of it and doing the research for this. And when I did, I looked into it. There's a lot of research out there. So I'll give you a little bit of background, just as more as information than anything else. Some things you may already know, some things you may not. So talk about the background of sleep. I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of sleep, which I think we all kind of know by the way we feel sometimes when we wake up in the morning. And then I'm also going to talk to you about the research and tell you what's up with that. And then finally, I'll be talking a little bit about good ways to get sleep, because I think that that's a little elusive for a lot of people these days. So chasing sleep, like this girl's chasing these beautiful pink butterflies. Sleep has become more and more fleeting for Americans, especially now as stress and worry contribute to tossing and turning during the night hours. I know in the beginning of the pandemic, I think I said to my son one day, you're going to refer to things as before and after the pandemic. I think we all will. But in the beginning of the pandemic, when things were so uncertain, I was really having a hard time sleeping in. I'm usually a pretty good sleeper. So, you know, the stress and the worry, they contribute to tossing and turning during the night, and it makes it difficult for us sometimes. And that can become stressful in and of itself. According to a journal article by Liu et al., approximately 60 million Americans are affected by chronic sleep disorders and sleep problems that can impair physical well-being and cognitive functioning. So it really can impact our daily lives. As you're going to hear me mention several times during this presentation, sleep disorders and chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, depression, and anxiety do seem to have a correlation with sleep problems and disorders. However, the link between these problems and lack of sleep are not yet quite proven. So we can find the underlying behavior and that there might be hereditary factors involved as that as well, or genetics, but we're not sure how they link. So for instance, obesity is one of the examples they give as being something that could be linked with poor sleep. But obesity can also be linked with inactivity or sedentary lifestyle, and it can be linked with poor nutrition. So kind of finding out which comes first, the cart or the horse, is the hard part. You know, are we seeing a large amount of obesity because people are unhealthy with their diet and exercise, or are they becoming obese because they're not sleeping? So because of those kind of blurred lines in there, the jury's still out on the studies, and they're continuing to do them and determine them. There was a lot of them out there, and I have a long list of references tonight, but I checked a lot of information out to try to get something concrete, and all of them were really saying the same thing, like it is suspected and it is likely that there is a correlation between chronic diseases and lack of sleep. But, you know, 100% proof there is not. So I just wanted to say that. And you'll hear me say it again later in the presentation. I also wanted to define chronic insomnia is generally defined as difficulty initiating or maintaining sleep for a period longer than 3 weeks. So briefer periods of sleep disturbances are usually caused by stress related things or due to an acute illness. But if you're experiencing sleep that's interrupted, or you're having a really hard time and it's really making it difficult for you to get through your daily activities, then you're going to want to make sure that you do consult a physician about that, because more than 3 weeks, they're saying with the chronic insomnia is could be detrimental to your health overall. No matter how you look at this science of sleep, I think we can all agree that a good night's sleep is a really great thing. You know, you wake up and you feel pretty good when you know you've had one. So one of the things I've discovered about doing these talks, because I've done quite a few of them in the last 9 months or so, virtually, it's not like when I'm in the audience with all of you. So I do very sincerely miss seeing all of your faces and being able to interact with you and ask for your input. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to start the discussion and ask you to type in the chat. I might have to have Julie voice in so that I can see it. But how do you feel, one word, after a good night's sleep? So you're this girl chasing the butterflies and you caught the butterfly, the good night's sleep. How do you feel, one word, after that good night's sleep? What does that make you feel like? So if you can send them into the chat, I'll take a peek here. Let's see, refreshed. Yep, looks like we got a couple refreshed, rested, right? Happy, yep. Well rested, refreshed, relieved, still tired. Okay. Inspired, good. I like that one. It's interesting. I remember when my kids were little, ready, at peace, that first night that a baby sleeps through the night and you wake up and you go, wait, what happened? Why did I sleep all night? You know, you have that restful and that really comes to you and sticks with you. So good. I like these, at peace. You know, it gives you that sensation that you feel good, you know, you're happy. So just think about that as we go through the discussion and talk a little bit more, because I think it does make a lot of difference in our lives. And I think it's important that we look at things that might be triggering our lack of sleep, or, you know, maybe triggering our good sleep. So try to keep track of those days when you wake up feeling that way. What happened the day before? Maybe, you know, what did you eat? Did you exercise? Was it a less stressful day than normal? Just try to keep track of those things, because they might help you to continue to get a good night's sleep. So thank you for sharing, everyone. That's great. It makes me feel like I'm not alone. All right. So to frame the discussion on sleep, it's really going to be useful to have a better understanding of the sleep stages. So I'm sure you might have seen some of this information before. And so I hope that the review serves you well as well. The first thing to realize is that we're on a schedule that's based upon the Earth's rotation. So much like animals, our bodies receive a signal from the light and the dark changes of day and night, telling us when we should sleep. Our body functioning around these cues is called the circadian rhythms. And when we enter sleep during these cues, there's several stages, and we'll talk about those stages in a second. But a lot of times people have a hard time if they travel often and they change time zones for their work, or they work shift work. A lot of times it's difficult for them and they feel tired during the day, because their bodies are naturally inherently telling them, okay, it's nighttime, go to sleep. I know I have a difficult time during daylight saving time, because my body kind of gets off cue. And last year I was working 2 jobs. So I was going to work in the dark and I was coming home in the dark, and I just couldn't catch up until spring. So it was really noticeable for me last year. But you know, you do see those cues of the time change and stuff like that, because we're used to that, and that's natural for us. So to lead into the discussion a little bit more, REM, or REM, rapid eye movement, is important to discuss when you're talking about sleep. So it's the most restful sleep, and it's when we dream. Other changes take effect in our bodies and mind as well during this time. So rapid eye movement, it is what it says. Our eyes move quickly during this time. We can have fast and irregular breathing during REM sleep, or REM sleep, and our heart rate increases during this time. It increases to about walking levels, actually. It can increase. Body temperature can change during REM sleep, and blood pressure can increase. The brain increases oxygen, and the face and limbs can twitch. I used to know the kids were asleep when I was sitting with them, waiting for them to fall asleep, and their little faces were twitching, or their arms were twitching, because that's during the rapid eye movement sleep, and that's a signal of that. But during rapid eye movement, something that you might not realize is that it can, during this time period, cause temporary paralysis, as the spinal cord ceases movement to arms and legs. And that's to protect us. That's actually a protection agency that our body puts into effect. That's to stop us from acting out our dreams. This is called paradoxal sleep. And I know most people that, it can paralyze them. My husband one time was dreaming that he was sliding into home plate face first, or head first, and he popped me one in my sleep as he was waking up. So sometimes it doesn't always take effect. Now, some people have disorders around this time period where they don't, that paralysis does not take place, and they act out their dreams, or they move, or they walk. And that's something, obviously, that, again, you should see a doctor about if that's the case. Despite all the changes that happen during REM, and we're hearing that it increases our heart rate and our breathing and things like that, there's actually benefit for us that's important during this time period. It can last about 60 minutes total, and it's intermittent during our sleep patterns in the night. So it comes and goes. It supports learning and memory, and that's why it's important. And it also supports our mood. So like you were saying in the beginning, people were saying relaxed, rested, relieved. You probably slept well during this time period, maybe had a few dreams, and it made you feel relaxed and changed your mood and affected your mood in a positive way. So obviously lack of good rapid eye movement sleep could make your mood, not so good. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Non-rapid eye movement begins with a person has not started the REM. So it's usually step one, stage one is usually you're in a light sleep or awake, that kind of in between fact that you're starting to fall asleep, but you're not quite there yet. And then that usually lasts about 10 to 15 minutes. It occurs in stages throughout the night, just like REM sleep. And like I said, the first stage is that beginning stage. The second stage is a deeper sleep of the non-REM. And this is when the heart rate and body temperature start to fall and come down. In the third and fourth stage, which are kind of combined and overlap, the muscles begin to relax and blood to muscles increases. And this part of sleep, the non-REM, is where the body starts to grow and grow tissue, and repair itself. So it is an important part of the sleep process as well, because that's when we're kind of rejuvenating ourselves. So again, if you wake up feeling relieved or rested, the reason could be because you're experiencing good non-rapid eye movement sleep. As we get older, we get less of the non-REM sleep, and people under 30 usually get about 2 hours, and those that are over 30 might only get 30 minutes a night. So, it is an important stage. So if you are missing out on sleep, then you could be missing out on that reparative action by your body. So that's just a little bit of a background on there. And now that we understand the parts, the difference between REM and non-REM sleep talk, we're going to talk about the benefits of a good night's sleep has for us, specifically emotionally and physically. Write in the chat now how you feel when you don't get a good night's sleep. How about we try that one? Because I know miserable would be the first word that comes to my mind. So just jot down in the chat, how do you feel? Cranky, that's a good way to put it. Lousy, yep. Me too, miserable, yeah. Frustrated, dragging, grumpy, and stressed, right? We're gonna talk, they're great. Irritable, yep. Just tired. And we're going to talk a little bit. They're great. Thank you, everyone, again, for making me feel like I'm not talking to a screen, but they're really good input. And it's good for me to know these things as I continue on with these presentations, because it really gives me the ability to know how you all feel and how to better present to people. So thanks for sharing that. A good night's sleep does a lot of things for us. And the studies are conclusive on some things that it does good for us. And I think it's important to remember that I'm going to hit on this one. Where is it? Help us to balance our food intakes. I'll hit on that one in a minute. But think about, like, okay, you're irritable, you're cranky, but what other things are happening during the day? Do you not feel like exercising? Do you eat wrong? Like, how does that impact your day? And I think it's important to take count of how you're feeling when you have a good night's sleep or you don't have a good night's sleep. And we can't control that a lot of times. I realize that. But what we're doing during the day, and you'll notice that in the tips that I give you towards the end of the presentation, what we do during the day can really impact that. And it can impact our overall life and lifestyle. So a good night's sleep supports emotional well-being and good emotional health. When a person doesn't get a good night's sleep, it can be physical and emotional. And one study published in the Annual Review of Clinical Psychology found a direct relationship between sleep and emotional brain function. So, that study indicated sleep improves our emotional brain function. So when, you're feeling grumpy or you're feeling not quite yourself, cranky, I think was a word a lot of people use, That could be because your emotional brain health was not getting that rest that it needed and, regenerating itself. I know, again, like I said, I feel miserable, sad, angry. I have a big gamut of emotions that I experience. If you're missing sleep during the night, it may be good to realize how you're feeling, like I said, during the day, before and after, just to give you that perspective and be mindful of how your body feels. So it is one of those things to just kind of check in with yourself on. And I think a lot of times we're so miserable or annoyed or cranky during the day, it's hard to check that. But it is a good way to kind of keep track of what's going on. A good night's sleep can not only improve your mood, but it can give us much better memory function and awareness. So there's been articles written, I've read a few of them, how driving tired is like driving drunk, because you kind of lose that focus and you lose those motor skills. So you want to be getting a good night's sleep. And one of the things it does for us is it gives us that awareness and it helps with our memory, because remember, as I said, it's regenerating cells and it's helping to give oxygen to the brain and all those things that we need to help our awareness and memory. It might also support disease prevention. Now, as we talked about before, there's studies being done to try to find the relationship between sleep and chronic disease, and heart disease and diabetes, and they're linked to sleep deprivation. But the studies, again, it's the horse before the cart, or the egg before the chicken, or the chicken before the egg, which came first. So they're trying to determine that one has an impact on the other and which way it goes. But determining chronic disease is caused by other factors, a lot of times like genetics and nutrition or sedentary lifestyle. So we might never know. But I think that in our minds, especially like the difference between what you said you felt on the days you got a good night's sleep versus the nights you don't get, it kind of demonstrates to us all how getting a good night's sleep does help our health, makes us feel good. Let's see where we are. So it also assists with better physical conditioning and better physical output. So for athletes, a good night's sleep is really important. It helps those muscles regenerate. But for all of us, it can help to improve your daily workout. Well, first off, you don't probably feel like getting out of bed to get up in the morning to work out if you didn't have a good night's sleep. But it could also help you in general with physical workouts during the day and helping you feel more energized. I know that it makes me, physical activity makes me feel energized, and it makes me want to keep going. And it is a way to help you get sleep. But on the other end, it can also help improve your physical activity by getting a good night's sleep. It can help us balance our food intake. So a lot of studies have been done around sugar cravings. And I talk about this sometimes when I talk about sugar. And I always put it into perspective by saying that, it's like a roller coaster. So when you put sugar into your body, especially like straight sugar from a candy or something like that, it goes in really quick and then it plummets really down really quick because we burn that sugar really quick that way. But one of the things we do is if we're hungry or if we're tired, we think we're hungry and we're really craving energy. So we crave those sweet things because we want that quick pick me up to get to the top of the roller coaster so that we feel better. So it could have an effect on your overall blood sugar levels and things like that. If you're tired, you're going to be more likely to be craving something that is sweet to get you that energy or an immediate energy source. So it can balance, good sleep can help balance that out. And then it also helps with overall heart health. So remember in the beginning, I said during non-REM sleep, that it does allow our heart rate and our breathing to come down. And that kind of gives the heart a rest, right? So it's not pumping so hard as it is all day long, gives it a little bit of a rest and can help us with good heart health too. So all benefits, of things that good night's sleep does for us, aside of what we already know just from thinking, oh yeah, it makes me feel restful. It makes me feel relieved. So again, there was a lot of information out there around what the research says on the topic. And I wanted to make sure that I tried to address things that might be of interest to you. So there might be questions later on at the end. We'll take questions. Julie said she'll help me do that. But the research that is most relevant, I think, to us without getting really scientific is what I've included. And, I probably, like I said, I could have gone on forever with this, but we do need we don't need an exact recommended amount of sleep. Everybody always wants to, when I'm talking about nutrition or I'm talking about exercise or whatever it is, they want that complete formula. We want the answer. We want the exact thing. There's not really an exact formula for it. They say that we need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep as an adult. So that is a good thing to keep in mind, that 7 to 9 hours. Sometimes it's hard. We can't all do it, but you want to have the sleep that's going to make you wake up and feel restful. Sometimes if you get too much sleep, that can make you feel tired too. And one study that I read said that they were finding a link with people that if they had too much sleep, like over 9 hours, that they were having calcification in their heart. Now that was just one study, but that 7 to 9 seems to be in all the literature, what is supported there and what we need to feel good when we get out of bed and get in there. So, and start your day. So the other thing is that we're not really sure why, but we don't always remember dreams. But one thing that dreams do for us is it's people that have a lot of anxiety and stress, they're more likely to have frightening dreams. That was one of the things that I found out about. So dreams help us to process our emotions. So if you get a good night's sleep and you've been a little bit stressed out, you might have dreamed it out, dreamed it off during the night, and you wake up feeling a little more refreshed. So dreams are most vivid during that REM sleep, like I said, but they can happen during any time of the sleep periods, even in the non-REM stages as well. So just keep in mind that, they're not always good dreams, and maybe they're showing that you are a little stressed or anxious, but they do help us to cope with what's going on in our reality. Sleep disorders can be inherent. So if there's someone in your family that does have a sleep disorder, then, and you feel like you're having one, you might want to get checked out by the doctor to make sure that you're not experiencing one of those sleep disorders. And so, like I said before, there's studies around sleep deprivation and chronic disease. And people who tend to be chronically sleep deprived, so we're talking a lot of sleep missing, they could be at risk to be overweight, have a stroke, cardiovascular disease. And again, they're trying to find the links of where those are. Another thing that infections and being sick more often from not getting enough sleep, because your body's not rested. So especially now, as we're entering the winter months when, it's a little flu season's around and we have other things going around now, it's good to get that good rest and good night's sleep. And also certain types of cancers are, you're at higher risk for, they're finding, but again, not totally conclusive. They're still being studied and trying to find that relationship. They're also studying and trying to find a relationship between Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease and sleep, and what that relationship is. But again, they don't know which came first, the cart or the horse, because they're not sure if Alzheimer's and Parkinson's causes a lack of sleep, or is it caused by a lack of sleep, or is it a combination? So that we still have a lot of ways to go on that, and who knows if they'll ever be able to prove those factors, but it does seem to have a correlation. All right, so now the tricks of the trade. You can't sleep, what are you gonna do? So now that you heard a little bit of the research and everything, what are the biggest barriers you think you have to sleep? Are you having a hard time? Do you want to put that in the chat and share? What do you think might create a restless night for you? I know stress is big for me. And like I said, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was having a really bad time sleeping because it was so uncertain. So uncertainty can cause us to lack sleep. So has anybody got any things that they know always makes them sleep? Oh yeah, somebody wrote in the chat that sleep's really important for the NICU babies. Yeah. So the babies and children, they need more sleep because they need to grow. So babies need usually, like I said, 16 to 18 hours. And then the school age children are usually around 9.5 hours. So you can see the differences as we go down the lines of growth. But when you're developing and growing in a baby, that you need that 16 to 18. So thanks for sharing that. That's a good point. Mind chatter. I love that. That's a great way to put it. I always say there's so much going on in there, dealing with concerns about others, stress. Mine won't stop worrying, right? I have to eliminate caffeine or I can't sleep. That's a good point. Returning to sleep after getting up. Yeah. I didn't used to have that problem. I'd wake up in the, I'd sleep through the night, and now I wake up, and that's hard to get back to sleep. And it's really annoying when you can't get back to sleep. Not trouble falling asleep, but wake up at 3 a.m. and can't go back to sleep. Yeah. So, and that's really common. I've talked to a lot of women just in conversation who say that, like, they wake up, especially if they're mid-age, in the middle of the night, and then they can't get back to sleep. So here's a few little tips that hopefully you can implement and try out, and see if there's a way that you could use these ideas to help get to sleep and stay asleep or get back to sleep. So timing it is important. A lot of recommendations out there for, getting to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time. And that has been something so helpful to me personally that I did. I go to bed, at 10 o'clock, and I set my alarm for the same time every day. And I find that in doing that for a while now, I want to go to sleep at that time. I get a good night's sleep. Like I said, it's hard sometimes with stress, but I think it's important. And then I try to wake up at the same time, and even on the weekends, at least close to that time frame, and it keeps me on a schedule. So, there's been some research out there showing that setting that almost like you have that internal clock that we talked about in the beginning, but using that other, alarm clock or whatever as another part of that internal clock if you're not getting the cues that you need to help you get through the night. So think about that. Being active is really important too. And I know you guys didn't think you were going to get away without me talking about being physically active. That is one thing. I've read a lot of studies. There was one in pregnant women. There was one with mid-age women. And then there was another one with cancer patients. And all of them in those studies, they reported a high frequency of better sleep when exercise was increased. Now there's different variables. Some of them involve more aerobic exercise during the day, or maybe instead of doing the 20 to 30 minutes minimum that they suggest we use a day, they bumped that up a little bit and saw an increase in sleep during that time period. But they're, I think, important studies because, being active think about, when kids are little. I have 3 sons that were all kind of within this 3 years apart thing. And my goal in life was to wear them out like during the day so I could sleep at night. So they would expend a lot of energy and they would sleep a lot at night. But if they didn't expend that energy then, or they slept too much, then they weren't sleeping as well at night. So it's the same, for you can look at it the same for adults too. We need to expend some of that energy. We have a really high energy diet, like a high caloric diet. So we're taking a lot of calories in and we're not always expending them. So expending those calories and getting the exercise we need can really help you to get a good night's sleep. Make sure though that, I saw some recommendations too that you might not want to exercise 2 to 3 hours before sleeping because that might re-energize you and stop you from sleeping. So you're going to have to kind of play around with which one is the best option for you, which activity, but when you do it. So, if it's going to keep you up at night, then you might want to move it to another time of the day. The recommendations for a minimum amount of exercise for an adult is 150 minutes a week. And then an additional 2 days that include weight-bearing exercise, like weightlifting or resistance exercise. So keep that in mind and try using, one or all of these techniques to kind of help you to get asleep and stay asleep and get a good restful night's sleep. Somebody put in the chat, and I hear you on this one, cut the caffeine. You want to watch what time again during the day you're intaking caffeine. You want to try to maybe keep it away from bedtime. It is a stimulant. So it is going to stimulate your body to be active. And if you're trying to sleep, that's not what you want. So you want to try to cut that back. And if it's, if that includes energy drinks, it includes soda, coffee, anything with caffeine in it, it can stimulate you. So you want to try to cut those back and make sure that you're not having them too close to bedtime. Or if it's a constant problem, you might want to cut it down to 1 cup a day or whatever it is, what works for you. The other thing you want to do is avoid nicotine. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about nicotine from a vape, nicotine from cigarettes, or nicotine from a cigar. Nicotine is also a stimulant. And nicotine oftentimes the craving for nicotine will wake a person during the day or the night, I'm sorry, will work a person during the night. So not only are they craving it all day long, but during the night they have to get up to have a cigarette if they have a really high dependency. Now, a lot of people will tell you that they consume nicotine and continue to consume nicotine because it relaxes them and it gets rid of their anxiety. But what's really happening is the nicotine is an addictive drug. So that nicotine stirs you up and gets you hyper and makes you want more. So you crave the nicotine. And when you crave the nicotine, you take a puff or two, and then your anxiety level comes down. And that's because you fed the need for the addiction. You fed the addiction. So you feel better. So if you are using nicotine, recognize that that's what's happening. It is not an anxiety, anti-anxiety medication. It is more an anxiety medication. It is a stimulant, and it'll cause you to lose sleep. It'll cause you to wake up in the night. So if you are using nicotine and that is one of the things that, you think you want to get rid of and you're ready to do that, Cape Assist has a wonderful program, a smoking cessation program, and they give away free smoking cessation advice and counseling in group therapy as well as individual. And they also can supply you with the nicotine replacement therapy for free. And if you're in Atlantic County, then Atlantic Prevention Resources has the same offerings. So, it might be a good time. Today's the National Smoke Out, the Cancer Society's National Smoke Out. You don't have to quit today, but it's a good time to start thinking about it. So you can feel free, to call one of them. And I've worked with both of them. They're great people. They're very relatable, and they'll help you through it. So just a little PSA for those guys, and avoid nicotine to help you sleep. Alcohol consumption. A lot of people will say, oh, I have a few drinks, it calms me down, makes me sleep better. But just like, you can find from caffeine and nicotine, it's not a stimulant, alcohol, but it can act as a stimulant. So some people might say they're getting better sleep out of it, or a sounder sleep out of it, but it might be interfering with your sleep stages in reality. So you might feel like you did feel a little bit better, but you didn't. One study done by Stein et al. Shows that the amount of alcohol can have a varying effect on how much we sleep and how disturbed we are. And that's very likely due to the dependency level that you have, or how much you consumed. So that could vary. Like one night you might have a glass of wine, it helps you sleep, but then, other nights, if you have a little more, it might make you more restless. So it's just something to be cautious of, be aware of. You might not want to have alcohol really close to bedtime, because that could be a factor affecting your sleep and how you get through those sleep stages we talked about in the beginning. The other thing to think about is if it's interrupting your sleep, you might not be waking up, but you might not be getting that restful sleep that you need to get you through the evening or the night. So some things to do to help you maybe relax a little, like I know that this is, believe me, I am on the top of the list for preaching, I can tell you as much as I want, but relaxing is not easy for me. So try to do some things that help you relax. If you're waking up in the nighttime and you just can't get back to bed, maybe if you keep a book on your bedside, or maybe if you get a hot bath, or, do something for yourself, or try to do that before you go to bed, getting a warm bath or something that helps you cool down. It's going to be up to you what you do, obviously. But if you can take steps during the day to find a few minutes just to be quiet with yourself, that 10 minutes during the day, during waking hours, it's liable to have a good impact on your later day. It takes a lot for people to do it and to set time aside for it. It's like exercise and eating healthy. We keep going. So they're hard things for us to do, but finding that time to relax can help you at the end of the day to be able to bring it all down. Make sure that your sleep area is for sleep. Now, a lot of people are working from home, myself included now during COVID. And so the first thing I did was, because everybody came home from college and, working here, there, and everywhere, I started working from home with me in the beginning. I moved my desk into my office. And then at night, I would hear it go ping, 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 as other people that weren't sleeping are emailing me through the night. So if you have an area in your room, and right now it might be hard to be avoided, if your area in your room you have to share as your workspace, then try shutting it down at night, like turn off the computer or move the laptop, if it's a laptop, into another room where you won't hear it or see it. Try to straighten up your desk. If it's covered with Post-it notes, then try to make it organized at the end of your workday. So you're not laying in bed seeing that thinking, oh gosh, yeah, I forgot to do that. I forgot to do this. So if you can't make your sleep area just for sleep, then try to at least have it in a way that's going to make you feel better and sleep better. But if you can do it, then by all means, try to find that sleep area. Also, you know, sometimes people fall asleep in different areas. And then when they get to bed, like they might fall asleep on the sofa, when they get to bed, they can't sleep. So if you're starting to feel really tired, like you're dozing off, it might be better to get a good night's sleep by going into the bedroom and keeping that area as your sleep area. So unplugging is another thing that's really hard to do right now. We have our phones, they're like an attachment in our hands, and not just kids, but adults. We're constantly on call because of the, you know, the work situations now, emails coming home, you know, it's constant work time. So finding that time ahead of time, like an hour or two before bedtime, to kind of unplug all the electronics and even games. You might think you're playing a game on your phone and you're de-stressing, but you're not unplugging your brain. You're not allowing it to come down and be slow and calm. So you want to try to find ways that you can do that. Watch what you eat. So not only watch what you eat, or watch when you eat. So if you eat late at night before bed, you might be really full, and that might cause heartburn, upset stomach, and it might cause your body to not rest as well as it should because it's still digesting that food. So watch your amounts, that you're not eating a lot at the end of the day, right before you go to sleep, and watch what time you eat so it's not too late in the day. Because, you know, if you have a little bit out of your stomach, then it's going to be able to make a restful sleep for you. If you're not able to sleep, so somebody said they woke up at 3 a.m., recommendations do suggest that if you can't sleep, you know, you've tried a lot of things, then you want to get up and try to change it up. Like I said before, reading a book or trying to find something to do, because sometimes I know it's almost torturous to lay there and not be able to sleep. So they say, try to find an activity that will make you sleepy. Hopefully it's something that you're not plugged into, like a computer or your phone, but try to do something that's going to make you sleepy. If you try some of the things on the top of the scale here and the top of the list, that will help you to feel more tired and be more restful. If you're really finding it very difficult to sleep, then you should, and it's, you know, kind of chronic and happening for you, you really should consult a doctor and find out what you can do about it. And if there's a way that he or she can work with you to help you get better sleep. If you find that you're having, I know some people put in the chat that, you know, so much going on in your mind. That's a bad thing for me too. And it's really bad on Sunday night. I don't know about everybody else, because you're thinking about everything you're going to have to do for work the next day, right? So you're running down that mental list. So when I did counseling, I used to do counseling for nutrition as well as counseling for smoking cessation. But when I do counseling, I always try to suggest to people to find something that helps them rest their mind. So an example that I would give for you as you're laying in bed at night is, you know, as you're laying there, close your eyes and just maybe think about something floating in the air. So right now it's fall and there are leaves floating down from the trees. So what floating down from the trees, or a bag blowing in the wind or a paper blowing in the wind, think of something that would keep your mind, and think of that like kind of floating and drifting down, and then allow the wind to pick it up and drift it around a little bit more, and just kind of follow that leaf in your mind and see if that helps you to calm down. I mean, everybody always said count sheep, which I think is really annoying, but find something like the leaf floating or something, or the motion of the waves. Imagine the motion of the waves coming in, rolling onto the beach. Things that will help you feel relaxed. And then most likely those thoughts are going to enter your mind again, like, oh yeah, I got to call so-and-so on Monday morning. When that comes in, think of it like your phone. You swipe it out. You know, when you're looking at deleting email, swipe. Think of it in that way. Think of, okay, that thought came into my mind. I'm going to swipe it out. I'm going to go back to that floating leaf, and try to do things like that. So it's okay to recognize the fact that these things entered your mind, and they're going to enter your mind. That's why you can't sleep, remember? So just think about that, and think about how you might float away and drift away by concentrating on that. Just keep swiping those thoughts out and go back to the floating object. All right. Wait a second. All right. So I figured there would probably be some questions around sleep aids, and I wanted to make sure that I touched on this. If you know, sleep aids are out there. There's a lot of them out there. The first thing I would say about sleep aids is go back to the last page and try one of these, and try many of them. You know, try to exhaust all of them. If you're going to, you know, go through that list and you can't get anything to work and it's really becoming a bother to you, then consult with a doctor, check with your doctor, as I've said before, and talk to them about something. There are a lot of over-the-counter type medications that are out there, and I specifically wanted to look at ones that I've heard of and I see advertised. One thing I know a lot, I see familiar names in the chat talking, and I know you've heard me say this before, but all natural does not mean it's all good for you. All natural is poison ivy. Poison ivy is all natural, right? That's not the best thing to have rub up against you. So you want to check with the doctor, even if it's over the counter, because you don't know how it's going to interact with what you're taking already as medication. You don't know how it's going to interact with some underlying chronic conditions you might have, and you don't know how it's just going to interact with you overall. So do check with your doctor. And the evidence is out there for different types of sleep aids. So I looked a lot at melatonin, because you see advertisements for that. And again, it's advertised often as all natural. There was a study that I found that they did on zebrafish, and obviously we are not zebrafish, that there was some evidence that it helped some people, it could help some of them, but not all of them. So what melatonin does is it produces, melatonin is produced in the pineal gland at night anyway. So this and kind of triggers us to want to go to sleep and set that clock going. But there's been some thought that adding to it is okay, and some of it is really inconclusive. So the studies out there haven't proven necessarily that it's all 100%, but I did want to look at it so you would know about it. Then of course, you know, check with your doctor and see what they say too about prescriptions and things like that. So these are my references. As you can see, I was a busy little bee, and I did a lot of looking at different things throughout the preparation for this presentation. This was a difficult presentation to put together for y'all, because there's so much information out there, and unfortunately it has been studied somewhat, but it's not being studied and proven in a lot of areas. So we can make recommendations on things based on what has been studied, but there's still, I would say, a lot of things that need to continue on. So sweet dreams, try to have those, right? Try to take into consideration, you know, how your day's going, what things are going on. Try to de-stress when you can by doing some quiet time to yourself. I know that is so difficult all the time in the days that we live in. And I, again, am one that says to do it, and I'm not always the best at doing it. So I understand your plight in life, believe me. But I think that if you can take time and you know, get some exercise, watch what you're eating and drinking, it might be helpful to, you know, carry you through the night. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is just, you know, genetically, we don't have that in us to sleep as much. So that was in some of the studies too. So, you know, just some thoughts on that. I am going to ask Julie to put in the chat box a link. And in that, that link, if y'all want to click on it, that is an evaluation. It helps me to know how I did in teaching. It helps me to know how to better teach. And it helps me to know what to improve for next time, and what was good that you enjoyed, so I can continue doing that. So if you, Julie puts that into the chat, and you guys could click on that, that would be wonderful. And I'm going to look and see now in the chat if we have any feedback or any questions that go here. So there's the goruckers.edu is for the link for me for the information. So somebody's saying that they have found success with CBD gummies and with chamomile tea. Again, you know, there's all the different things out there work differently. I would always say recommend, you know, again, seeing your doctor about what you're doing. And it's kind of inconclusive. It's a shame, you know, it's something that's so important, and that so many people, like, it's really can make you suffer if you're not getting your sleep. So you want to, you know, consult with your doctor, and hopefully they'll start getting a little bit better with finding some ways to help all of us. Yeah, so somebody asked, what is the connection between no sleep and medications being taken? And I did find some research in there, especially it said that it does become more difficult as we age to sleep, but it also says that sometimes large amount of medications or certain medications can cause you to not be able to sleep. And then, you know, it's that whole counterbalance thing. So I would definitely, I mean, your doctor probably already knows if they prescribed it for you that you're not sleeping or could likely be not able to sleep. But one thing I didn't mention in the talk is, you know, a lot of times people, you get into this cycle. So you're taking a medication so you don't sleep. And then you start sleeping on the sofa during the day. And then you can't sleep at night because you just spent a couple hours sleeping on the sofa. So some days it's hard. If you can try to like leave your sleep for night if you can. And I know that even with the medication that could probably still wake you up. Unfortunately, you have to, I'm sure your doctor's outweighing, you know, the benefit of the medication you're on versus other side effects, but you might want to speak with your doctor, always speak with your doctor about those type of things. So somebody asked the question, how long before going to bed should you take melatonin? I would consult with your doctor about that. And I would consult with them before taking melatonin, because like I said, the tests were done on zebrafish. And I guess there's a lot of similarities between our brains and the way the brains work on producing melatonin and zebrafish is why they were studied from the article that I read, or the journal article that I read. But I would say that you definitely want to talk to your doctor about how soon to take it and if to take it and when to take it and how much to take it. Because I know I was doing counseling with somebody and they couldn't sleep and they're taking a whole lot of melatonin. I'm like, no, 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 no. And they hadn't consulted with a doctor and it was not good. So you want to make sure, even though it's over the counter, that you're checking it out again because of those interactions with medication. So I cannot answer the question because in the research that I found, like some of these questions just aren't answered in journal research. So that's why I'm suggesting that you talk to your doctor about that. So I can't unfortunately answer that question, but your doctor can probably guide you. Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, so somebody's asking certain cancers that might be connected with sleep. So again, the studies are looking at chronic disease and if the lack of sleep then precipitates a chronic disease, but they've not been able to parallel it, right? So it's kind of like you don't know which came first. Is it the chicken or the egg? Like, did the person get cancer because they didn't sleep enough, or are they not sleeping and it's because they have cancer? So it's kind of one of those things they don't know. Or is there all these other different factors? Was there a genetic factor involved in there? Or was there, you know, something else going, an environmental factor that caused a cancer? So there's a connection. A lot of times folks can't sleep when they have a cancer treatment program going on. Again, medications involved. So that could be why they're not sleeping. So I'm not really sure if you're asking if it is causing cancer or if you're asking if about the sleep. But one of the studies that I mentioned was they did a study of women who exercised more when they had breast cancer, and it showed that it increased their sleeping patterns, their number of hours slept in it. I don't have that one listed in this study, but if you email me, my email's at the top there, I can send you that study if you want to read over it. It just showed that is one of the studies I used in my exercise presentation. And it showed in that study that women that had breast cancer and were in treatment were able to sleep better because they did exercise. So that was where that parallel was. I'm not sure if that answered your question. And again, if anybody has questions, please email me. I'm glad to answer them. I do get them after the talks. And I explained to somebody had asked me a question one time in the chat and I tried to answer it. And it was a little confusing the way I answered it. And I try to be as descriptive as possible, but I'm not always understanding what you're asking in the chat either. So it's not that one-on-one like we're usually lucky to be at the Ocean City Library having the conversation face-to-face. So it makes it a little more difficult for me sometimes to answer questions. So does anybody have any other questions? Well, it was really great being here again. I want to thank Julie and the Ocean City Library for having me again. I always enjoy being here. And It's a joy. I'm going to be back again in January. Julie and I were talking before, excuse me, we're talking before the talk, and we're going to start setting up some programs.